This idea that you're taking up this theme of the Course, the Holy Spirit uses what we made for salvation. So we made comparison and we made differences. So doesn't he use the differences or form to teach us that the content's the same?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Am I tracking that right?
Yes, yes. Actually, both aspects would be right. You know, that he helps us see all the differences, and again, we have to begin by acknowledging all the differences that we have made real. And then he shows us that behind all the differences is the same content. So again, this is not a course in denying what you perceive, what you think, what you feel, what you experience. It's a course in taking what you think, feel, see, and experience to him, so he could show you that there's a common thread that underlies everything. There's a common content. In the world of dreams, there are degrees. There are some people that are more vicious than others. There are some people who are nicer than others. There are some people who are holier than others. Some people who are farther up the ladder than others within the dream. But when you stand outside the dream above the battleground and look back down, then you realize there's no hierarchy. If you're on the bottom rung of the ladder or the top rung of the ladder, you're still on a ladder. That is nothing. There are no gradations. There are no degrees. There is no order within the wrong-minded thought system or the right-minded thought system. The ego is 100% hate. The Holy Spirit is 100% love. It's the amount of time we spend in between that gives us the experience of gradations and a process. But in truth, within the dream, 100% hate, 100% love. And everyone here has the same split mind because we all fragmented from the same single thought, same single split mind. Thought of hate and guilt and a thought of forgiveness and love. And again, the power to choose between them. The other point that you made is extremely important. We make comparison to attack and to separate, and the Holy Spirit uses comparisons to show us what we have done, comparing what we have done with what we have given up, so we would then be motivated to choose again. There are several places in the Course where Jesus frankly says that. The Holy Spirit teaches through comparisons. There's one remarkable passage at the beginning of the Happy Learner section in chapter 14 where he talks about how the Holy Spirit basically wants us to know how miserable we are. Because he can't teach us the happiness he's leading us towards until we first recognize how miserable we are. And if we insist that we're really happy and deny the misery, then it's not going to work, because the happiness we think we have is a pseudo-happiness. But we will say to the Holy Spirit, I'm already happy. And we'll swear that the Holy Spirit is making us happy. When all we're really doing is pushing down the misery and the pain of being in this world. And of course, throughout this whole course, that's all that Jesus does. He contrasts his thought system of forgiveness with the ego's thought system of hate, specialness, and murder. And he says, choose. And so one of the lines I always like to quote, that's a wonderful summary of this point, at the end of chapter 23, he says, who with the love of God upholding him would find the choice between miracles and murder hard to make? Well, implicit in that is the contrast. There, with the love of God beside you, that's what Jesus represents, you see clearly the choice between the murderous impulses and purpose of specialness with the loving purpose of the miracle. And when you see the contrast clearly, then the choice is obvious. The very limitation that we have made to prove that God is wrong and we are right, indeed, that God is non-existent, the true God is non-existent, and we exist. The very means that we use to prove that becomes the very thing Jesus now uses to lead us back home. When we left home and we went on this long, awful, terrible, horrendous journey that the ego led us down, basically what the Course says, the ladder that the separation led us down. Another place Jesus talks about this mad course into insanity that the ego led us on. That basically what this was a way to run away from home. Right? The very path, very freeway, except it wasn't so free, we had to pay a heavy price for it, that the ego made for us to kind of travel away from home and establish our own kingdom, becomes the means, when we change teachers, to lead us back home. All right, that is very, very important, because this would allow you no longer to judge yourself or judge others for all the stupid, foolish, vicious, insane things that you and everyone else does. Because the very things that we all did, all sharing the same insanity and the same viciousness, the very things we all did to attack God, to run away from him, to deny his reality, and to establish our own reality in its place, all of these things now suddenly, when we change teachers and invite a different teacher into the classroom of our lives, all of these things now become holy, not in and of themselves, but because they serve a holy purpose. Which means when you look at these things, the right-minded way of looking at your life and everyone else's life, no matter where they fall on the continuum of good and evil, as society judges who is good and who is evil, no matter where anyone falls on this, everything in their life now becomes only a detour. It becomes a long way around getting back home. But every way, every pathway, every relationship, every script that we've written will end up leading us back home if we choose the right guide. Right? And so this detour, in effect, becomes like the contours of our life. The only difference is that beforehand, we went away from heaven. That's the ladder, the separation led us down. Now, we simply reverse our course, literally, actually choose a different course, and now we go back. We go up the ladder, that separation led us down. Now, to be sure, again, it's a detour, because it's not going straight home. All right, but the Course tells us that the Holy Spirit will not take us straight home because our fear is too great. That's why Jesus says, do not be afraid, you'll be lifted up and abruptly hurled into reality. Later on, he says that you don't awaken from nightmares just like that. You don't go from nightmares to reality. You go through the various steps called the happy dreams, the gentle dreams. All right? So these are the detours, but they're detours that now have a different purpose. That's why when you judge them, when you attack them, when you try and starve them out through various forms of asceticism, right? When you condemn them, when you make fun of them, when you abuse yourself on account of them or abuse others, what you're doing is sabotaging the root. You're sabotaging the very thing that will take you home. And the very thing is what you made to harm. You are not asked in this course to give up your special relationships. You are not asked to give up your liabilities, your deficiencies, your defects. You're asked to give them a different purpose. You use the very same things that brought you and others so much pain as the very means to lead you beyond pain. And that occurs simply by letting go of your ego as your teacher. There's those two lines in the Course that I frequently put together that says, resign now as your own teacher, for you have been badly taught. Where you resign now as your own teacher, you fire your ego, and you now bring in the Holy Spirit or Jesus as your teacher. Again, your life of specialness, of guilt, of hate, of attack, of sickness, of pain, become the contours. They become the highway that will lead you back. But you will not allow yourself to be led back to the extent that you judge, attack, find fault, criticize, or languish in guilt. This is not saying that your life is holy, but it's saying your life is not unholy. Your life is nothing. Its purpose is what gives it its meaning.